It was a slow start to the conversation, but she knew he had a lot to get off his chest.
What I was administering to her slowed the illness. The signs were hard to spot, but being infected meant she still carried it and could pass it on to others. She was...
He paused for a moment, Cassandra increasing her grip on his hand as she waited for him to continue. It's okay. You can trust me. He looked up at her after a few minutes. His eyes were glistening with tears, but she knew he needed to carry on for his own sake as well as hers. He couldn't keep it bottled up any longer.
This illness was created by people of a higher power. The higher wealth people, like myself, would sit around and fiddle about with dangerous materials. I tried so hard to right the wrongs caused by those people, but instead I have become the laughingstock, the mentally unstable freak. More people were dying than I had the ability to save them. All those people came from a lower class. People who are still people, no matter where they came from.
He closed his eyes again to recall the pain he felt at that moment.
She knew the risks. I told her everything. I told her to keep distance from people. And when the time eventually came, and she was too sick to carry on, I told her I would still be there. I would look after her in her final days. That should have been enough, shouldn't it? I gave her extra time.
She could tell by the way he kept pausing, he was avoiding her actual question as a coping mechanism. He didn't want to believe what she had done, but Cassandra needed to know what it was. I know you did everything you could for her. None of this is your fault. By this point, she couldn't tell if it was his hand shaking or her own. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve before the tears had time to fall, as he tried to continue.
The illness can only be spread through close contact. It can contaminate food if it comes in contact with sweat, saliva, mucus, anything from an infected individual. Brushing against someone wouldn't be enough for someone to become infected. It would need a way to enter the body. It all started from infected goods delivered to the homes of the less privileged and left by the side of the homeless. They had no reason to believe anything was wrong.
He explained in detail. No stone was left unturned.
The food was consumed, and the illness took hold. Maud knew, with my help, she wouldn't show any signs. She befriended the son of a wealthy merchant who supplied goods to the church. All it took was a contaminated batch of dough, and it would return the disease back to the very people who started all of this. Now many more will die because of the trust I put in her.
He tilted his head to look at her again.
So in a way, yes, it's all my fault. But there is one thing I failed to mention to her.
What was it? Cassandra questioned. He swallowed thickly before he continued, a strong feeling of regret overtaking him.
The man who gave the orders for this was my father. I know how he did it. One of his top men from the church showed me the ways of medicine. The church believed in his cleansings, to wipe out the less privileged, the vermin, as he would often refer to them. Father knew what I was doing. He believed I was only helping people of a higher class, but I couldn't let Maud die.
She couldn't help but notice that Baxter was talking about his father as if he was no longer around. But then it dawned on her. Your father's dead, isn't he?
Yes, he's gone. In a way, it's all come full circle, don't you agree? His own order became his downfall. The death rate has become unbearable, although Maud was one of the few who had the illness, but that wasn't what killed her.
Cassandra squinted her eyes in his direction. She was confused. She thought she was getting somewhere, but yet another misshapen piece had been added to the puzzle. Noticing her confusion, he carried on as he tried to explain.
As I feared, her symptoms did start to show eventually. It didn't take long for the church to figure out what she was doing. They killed her.
The room fell silent for a few moments. He shook his head as if he was trying to rid his mind of the most painful memory of all.
I did manage to keep my promise. She was here when she died. I did stay with her in her final moments. Not the way I'd expected, but I was there. Until the end. It is still a mystery of how she made it before she died, but I'm glad she did. I'm glad I got to see her one last time.
She finally felt him pull his hand away from hers, wiping away another round of tears from his face. Baxter, you did everything you could. You couldn't protect her forever. I'm sure she was so grateful. Your father's mistakes aren't yours to correct. He pushed himself up from the stool and wandered to the far end of the room.
My father's mistakes will eventually disappear over time. But the pain I feel will be with me for the rest of my life. At least, what I have left of it.
She watched him pacing the room, before drawing her attention back to the bottle on the desk, containing the mystery liquid he had injected into himself. You have it too, don't you? The illness. It's your routine that's keeping you alive. He smirked as he turned back round to face her.
Maud isn't just a friend, is she? You have her intellect. You are very similar in many ways. Hopefully you'll see that two wrongs don't make a right. Her mistakes have cost the lives of many, including her own. Don't let it cost yours too. When the time comes, I'll see her again.
Tears built up in Cassandra's eyes at the thought of what he was willing to do to be with Maud again. You gave yourself the illness so you could be with her.
It was self-inflicted, but not by my own hand. All it took was a kiss.
Still pacing the room, he plucked a folded piece of paper from between two of the bottles on his shelf and made his way back towards her.
Open this letter when you get back to wherever you came from. Not a moment before. Read it, and she'll be there to listen.
That was the last thing she remembered as he placed the paper into her hands. Heading back out onto the dirty street, it didn't take her long to find her companion again. Maud, I know what happened, she said with a smile. Cassandra stood still before the hybrid. Maud's whole personality had seemingly changed within such a short period of time. Her words were sharp and straight to the point. What did he tell you? He told me everything. I understand your story, and I don't blame you for what you did, she said, half expecting Maud to join in with her newly found glee from learning about her past. Maud's gaze was fixed upon Baxter's house. She watched as the cloth on the windows fluttered as he moved around the building, recalling his hurried and determined attitude, which was one of her fondest memories of him. I did tell you it wouldn't be easy, didn't I? You may think you understand my story, but there's so much more to tell.